This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
All right, welcome to this podcast, Season 4, Episode 30. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
We have Jonathan Kuline on the line in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
A place to live and a place to grow. A place we call Ontario.
Ontario. You got it.
All right, bit of fact check. So I was talking last week about Lawrence of Arabia, and I actually went back to Amazon Prime has Lawrence of Arabia on it now, and I remembered that scene. It's one of the pinnacle scenes in Lawrence of Arabia when Omar Sharif is the guy whose name I couldn't remember, but famous, actor of that part of the world. The scene, we talked about, I forgot the name now, the character from Boba Fett who appears in the mist.
Oh, Cad Bane, yeah.
Yeah, Cad Bane. Because there's a scene where Peter O'Toole and another guy are waiting, or an Arab guy, his tour guide guy, are waiting at a well. And, they're sitting around and the Arab guy goes and gets some water out of the well and that kind of stuff. And they see this little, off on the horizon, this sort of elusive, misty sort of, you get that heat rays thing going and you get that sort of weird looking stuff. And it's like a 2.5 minute scene. I made note of when it started and ended. And it's Omar Sharif on a camel coming towards the camera, right? I wonder how many takes they did of that too, right? And as he's coming, like before he even gets to within range, he pulls, like the other Arab pulls out a gun and points it at him. And next thing you hear is a rifle shot. And Omar Sharif's character has shot the guy at the well. And he says, and Peter O'Toole's like, why'd you kill him? Because that's my well. But it's that same sort of thing like that was in Book of Boba Fett last week with the sort of misty, character who just shows up and dispatches his authority and then leaves, right? So anyway, he plays a huge role in the movie too. But I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia. But I think it's like 3 hours, almost 4 hours long.
4 hours, yeah. It's a crazy long movie. The other scene that it really is really, I mean, it steals a lot. It's a shot that's been used on a lot of Westerns and things like that, but it really reminds me of, is it High Plains Drifter, the Clint Eastwood movie? Exactly. Very much like, stranger walks into town. Like, I don't think, I think that's the right movie where he doesn't even have a name. They just call him the stranger.
Yeah, there's 4 movies where the character doesn't have a name. He's called the man with no name, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, but there's very much that scene where it's just like this man sort of just appears out of nowhere, walks through town, and then they do the same shot of him just leaving at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies. Like, and it's got that whole sort of, he dupes the town into defending themselves, and
yep.
Yeah, that's a great movie, and it's sort of like he's I think, and at the end of it when he sort of takes over, like he dispatches his justice, and you never see him on the screen, right, sort of thing. Yeah, and Cad Bane talks the way that Clint Eastwood would talk, right, like he grit his teeth, yeah, and just sort of talk through his teeth, kind of thing. So really kind of cool character, right? Mm-hmm. And I have a link here from Melissa Villasenor doing celebrity impressions, and like a number of them. And apparently, I didn't realize I'd seen her before, but I didn't even realize it's the same person. But she was actually discovered on America's Got Talent, right, at the age of 17 or something, when she came on and did like Miley Cyrus and a few other characters, like singing and talking, doing her impressions of people, right? And yeah, she's amazing. And she was on, I think she was, and she does like Kristen Wiig and everything. And this is a scene from Comedians Getting Coffee, driving around a car. I think it's called Comedians Getting Coffee. I forget what it's called. Another fact check. The Jerry Seinfeld thing, right? And Jerry's like totally impressed with her ability. So I'm calling her the new Christopher Plummer, because I think when you need, to fill a gap and you need a female voice of any kind, you just call Melissa Villasenor, right?
Yeah, she's good.
Octavia Spencer plays the parole officer to Riz Ahmed in Encounter. That's the person I couldn't remember. She's a pinnacle character. She's like the second person billed on that movie, but she plays a really good role in that movie. So in Encounter, which I still recommend you watch, even in spite of the bad reviews. And last week, Jonathan said that Disney should buy Sony. And he said Sony's not worth as much as they were anymore. So I did some checking, And it turns out in the annual revenue of Sony in 2021 was $84 billion, up 11% from 2020, where Disney's revenue in the same period was $67 billion. So it's kind of toe-to-toe. In fact, Sony's got more revenue than that. And
so
just for,
are we talking market? We're not talking market cap. We're talking revenue.
Let me hang on. And we can look that up too if you like. But the other thing is just for reference sake here, Apple's annual revenue last year was $365 billion. And Paramount was only $730 million. So they're not even in the B's. But yeah, this is revenue, Jonathan. It's whether it's market cap or whatever. I'm not going to go into stocks, and that's where we have Mark on the show to talk about that kind of stuff. But I mean, it scales, right? Like if you really want to go and look at it up, you can look it up yourself if you don't believe me. But I think Sony's worth at least as much as Disney. They're not just producing TV shows and movies, right? So
I think it would be interesting too. So Sony's a publicly traded company as well. They don't have to buy it, the whole thing. They have to buy 51%.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But they also have to agree, get the main owners of Sony, the largest stockholders of Sony, to sell, right?
That's true. I don't know how the division of that is, but again, that's certainly been done. The hostile takeover thing has certainly been done. I honestly feel like the reason that it hasn't been done is probably because they kind of scraped by in acquiring Fox Studios and all the Fox assets to... no, Disney. Because when Disney bought all the Fox assets, The Simpsons and the Aliens and Predator and all that stuff, when they bought Fox for $67 billion, they kind of got away with avoiding an antitrust case because they basically amalgamated two major players and eliminated a large competition. If they do that again, I imagine that U.S. Congress might get involved, because you're essentially creating a monopoly, and that's what antitrust laws are in place to prevent, right? So, but yes, I mean, I was saying it obviously, in a somewhat facetious way. I'm just fed up with Sony trying to cobble together these who gives an F products, Well,
yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, that's just the thing. Like Disney's reason to be is to entertain people. I mean, that's, they're like in the same way that Apple is like to make your life better. They're not really selling. I mean, literally they do produce hardware and stuff like that, but that is not how they approach it, right? And Disney's in the same way. They're there to entertain you and make sure you have a big smile on your face at the end of it, right? Whereas Sony is like, they're so many different things. They're making hardware, they're making, they're making movies, they're making games. They own like, how many PlayStation titles do they own, kind of thing, right? So they're kind of like a Swiss Army knife of media technology, right? So yeah. And by the same token, Apple's doing the same thing, because Apple's now getting into the entertainment market, right? So
Google, right?
Sorry?
And Google's kind of doing the same thing, right? They're creating the technology because they have their phone lines, and then they're also, producing content. And
and they're the world's largest search engine, right?
And YouTube's not a small thing.
No, with the whole purchase of YouTube, that was a huge thing too, for sure.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that Sony was as big as they are, because they had been hurting for such a long time, and PlayStation and selling cameras for iPhone production is pretty much the only thing they had going for them. I guess Sony Pictures has been doing a lot better with the Spider-Man series, Venom and stuff, but
if you do look at the revenue chart over the years, like if you go like this, I got these numbers from stock purchasing sites, but if you look at the sort of year over the year, like the bar chart or the line chart or whatever it is, it definitely did swoop up in around 2020, 2021, right? And that, I suspect that's because of the whole working from home thing and whatever, because
PlayStations became incredibly in demand, right? That revenue stream did really well for them.
Yeah. Well, that, and I mean, I think anything that sort of embraced, people are stuck at home. What are they going to do? Can't go to the theaters, right? Sort of thing. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's head over to the headlines, and we'll start off with Jaime with my favorite space show.
The often, or many times at least, delayed Orville We're coming up on 3 years. Yeah, this is going to be the third year of delay between their seasons. So granted, COVID had a lot to do with that. We had originally thought it was going to come out, or not originally, recently thought it was going to come out for the third season in March. Looks like now, based on this new teaser, it's officially June 2nd, 2022 on Hulu as The Orville New Horizons. I don't recall the reasons why they gave it that title. So it's either season 3 or season 1.
Jump. Yeah, I think it's because of the time jump. I think they're accounting for they're almost treating it like it's a relaunch,
like a next
just because.
generation?
Well, not that far of a jump, but I mean, I think they have to account for the fact that everybody's 4 years older.
Well, and one of the characters is no longer around, right? Who am I thinking of? Yeah, what's the name of the robot character?
Isaac the robot? Do you mean Norm, who played Yaphet?
Yaphet, is that it?
Yeah, Yaphet's the gelatinous one. He died, obviously. Norm Macdonald died.
Oh, Norm Macdonald, yeah.
But whether or not he's in the season, I think he might be, because if they've already done everything, they could have his voice already.
And who voices the robot character? I can't remember his name. Isaac.
I don't think it was anybody famous. I think it was, beyond his fame as Isaac.
Okay. Just a voice actor. Okay. So what do we think about this New Horizons thing?
This article is saying that this has the final role of Norm Macdonald.
Well, there you go. Yeah, cool. I mean, I think you and I, Tim, have been a little more off on the last bit of Orville than Jaime was. I'm definitely gonna tune in and give it a shot. I am a little concerned because there's been this. We've talked about this on previous episodes. This unfortunate trend the last little while of things that are debuting on Hulu being delayed by, at times, months for Canadian distribution. I'm ashamed to admit that I climbed into the message board because Disney Plus was touting its great impending launch of How I Met Your Father on Disney Plus Canada coming in March, and I saw a bunch of people commenting, me like, "Oh, this is so great! This is so great!" And me being the Grinch, I jumped in there and was just like, "Hey, Disney Plus, why exactly is it we're getting this 2 months after its debut in the United States?" And people on there were immediately down my throat. "Well, it's just a sitcom. Calm down. You can wait. It's fine." I'm like, wow, that's very Canadian. So, yeah, but yeah, I think.
Sorry.
I think what they lost in the conversation was the fact that it's not necessarily about this one show. It's about all the shows. Hit Monkey did the same thing. That did the same thing. MODOK did the same thing. They're probably going to do the same thing for the Orville. So, I don't think we're going to review it because we can't, because it won't be available for two of us. Unless Jaime wants to do the one-man recap. It was great. You guys should watch it. I just
wasn't that like that with Ozark last week?
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky one, right? It's a slippery slope. You don't care and you don't care and you don't care until it's something you care about, and then you're like, hey, what the F? It's just they keep doing this, and if you were really looking forward to Hit Monkey and you had to wait an extra 2 months, you'd be like, hey, that sucks. If you were really waiting for How I Met Your Father, same thing, or MODOK, or maybe the Orville, it's just a bad trend when, the three of us are friends. We can't have a conversation about this show because one of us can't watch it, or two of us can't watch it for months at a time. That's a negative experience, what a naive notion to think that oh, sorry, there's a border there, so Jaime and Tim and Jonathan would never talk about this show. What?
Well, I mean, and it's funny, like you said, they're like, oh, come on, it's just a TV show. But if it was Star Wars or something like that, some sort of Star Wars title, I'm notwithstanding Jonathan, your head would explode. But the other people would all of a sudden notice, right?
Yeah.
Kind of
I don't think that people would want to read my social feed if that were to come to pass, for the vulgarity would obliterate the algorithms if they decided they were going to start delaying the release of some of that stuff. But you never know. Like I say, the Hulu is still producing, good programming. It's just that in the past, Hulu programming might come here to Canada on a cable channel or some other method that it might come in a more timely fashion. But if it's not coming in that way and they're using it as Disney Plus fodder, yeah, we're waiting. And eventually it will catch up with some of these people who go, wait a minute, what? But I was really looking forward to that show. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I didn't realize that the Oscars had been announced already, eh?
The Oscar nominations were announced this week. They were indeed. It was not a great day for science fiction and fantasy and all the things that we love to chat about on this show, with the minor exception. So, yes, the Oscar nominations came out. Dune, which was our Spocky's Award winner for Best Picture, was nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. However, the big news that came out of that was it was not nominated for Best Director for Canada's Denis Villeneuve. So that's a bit of a slap in the face. I mean, I find it very, very frustrating the way they've got it structured now, because they can have as many as 10 nominees for Best Picture, but only 5 for the other categories. So 5 movies that are so-called best pictures could win a Best Picture, but not have the Best Director associated with it, which is kind of a strange twist. That being said, I think you can take the hint that if you didn't get nominated for Best Director, chances are you aren't going to win Best Picture. And it's really just we put it in here for the sake of putting it in here so that people would say, oh, it's an Oscar-nominated movie. All that to say,
yeah,
10 nominations is nothing to sniff at. It's probably going to win, some of the technical stuff. The only category that's really a sci-fi category anymore is the visual effects awards. So, sometimes costume making, but even that, they often give it to like genre stuff, it's a film set in the 1920s, like, whatever. So it's not good. And beyond that, nobody from the cast was nominated for any of the awards. We talked about Rebecca Ferguson was really good. We talked about some of the performances we really liked, and nobody there was nominated. So that's a disappointment. We did get a little bit of an interesting twist on the whole Spider-Verse thing, in that Andrew Garfield was nominated, Kirsten Dunst was nominated, and what's his name? J.K. Simmons was also nominated. So 3 of the primary actors from the Spider-Man films were all nominated, which is kind of funny, obviously, for 3 different projects. But it's funny how that sort of came together. But yeah, I mean, not, I don't know. I mean, the Oscars, I find that often I don't really, I'm not alone. If you look at the ratings and you look at the interest level in this, which is theoretically the highest honors that you can get in filmmaking, I don't put a lot of stock in it anymore. I don't really care a heck of a lot.
Yeah, I've been watching the Oscars for years, and I probably will watch them again this year, but when I look at the field here, like you've got Kenneth Branagh and you've got Steven Spielberg nominated for Belfast and West Side Story. I could see why, I'm predicting them, or did the lady who directed the dog movie, Power of the Dog, being champion, did she get nominated for Best Director? I
believe so.
Because that Power of the Dog movie is the kind of movie that wins Oscars, like, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's Oscar baity. Yeah.
Yeah, especially since it's like American, it's a Western, it's got a bit of a twisty sort of, I can't remember if Brokeback Mountain, did I give it away? I don't know if Brokeback Mountain got, and I know it was nominated for things, but I don't know if it actually won anything.
It's Campion, Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza, Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, Steven Spielberg for West Side Story.
Yeah, I got to see Licorice Pizza. Carol was telling me something about that the other day. I can't remember what she said specifically, but it sounds like something I should watch. But yeah, I mean. But like I've already said this about Dune already. I found it was very anticlimactic, because there's more to the story than what we saw, right? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. On IMAX, it was amazing, visually stunning and that kind of stuff. Like, it's the kind of movie that you want to go back and absorb, like you do a large painting. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not something you take in one sitting, right? And again, I mean, who knows? I mean, like the people who are reviewing these movies, I mean, they're getting a DVD or a Blu-ray of the disc. They're not actually going to an IMAX theater and taking it all in, right? So, the people who are reviewing them, so unless they have amazing home stereo home theaters, I wonder who Kevin Smith voted for.
He does get a vote. He does get a vote.
Oh no, I did put him in. Okay. I just want to talk about him later, but
Argo is the only movie I can think of in recent memory that won Best Picture without having.
Yep.
Oh wait, was
and it was about a Canadian
Affleck
too.
Didn't win Best Director, but was he nominated? Maybe that's different because you're right. You said here that this director was not nominated for Best Director, and I do think that Ben Affleck was nominated but did not win. Yeah, that's probably not a good sign.
Villeneuve was nominated for Arrival. He wasn't nominated for the Blade Runner movie, though, right?
Nope.
Yeah. And the Blade Runner, the 2049 or whatever it was called, I mean, it was visually stunning, too, and another movie that you want to take in on the large screen, because of the, the scale of the imagery, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like I say, from a genre perspective, from a sci-fi fantasy perspective, this is going to be pretty an inspiring awards show.
What science fiction movie has ever won? Avatar, maybe?
Avatar didn't win Best Picture, did it? I don't think so.
No, has a sci-fi movie ever won Best Picture?
I guess it depends on what you qualify as a sci-fi movie, but I can't recall one off the top of my head.
Yeah, neither do I.
Well, Crave. I was looking at Crave this afternoon, just trying to figure out if Discovery is going to be on. Doctor Who and all the Star Trek stuff are under drama on Crave.
Sorry, what is?
All of the Star Treks, like, the original series, TNG.
Those are dramas?
Discovery. They're all under drama on Crave, as well as Doctor Who.
Sure.
Wikipedia here says that no science fiction film, quote, no science fiction film has won the award, though 12 films have been nominated, including A Clockwork Orange, Star Wars, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Avatar, District 9, Inception, Gravity, Her, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, Arrival, and Dune.
And Joker was nominated, although you can argue that's a drama and not a science fiction comic movie, even though it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
Yeah, Black Panther was nominated. Joker didn't win. That's right. That Joker was a nominee, but it didn't. Yeah, I mean, there's been nominations that have sort of, again, sort of looped in that sort of more inclusive thing. But that's honestly, that's my problem with the expansion of the field from 5 to as many as 10 is it's tokenism. Like it's like, it at its root, it's essentially like we'll throw in a few populist things so that people give a hoot about this awards show when really there's no chance. Well, okay, here's Shape of Water. Shape of Water one. Is that a science fiction movie or is that a drama?
Yeah, no, it's a science fiction movie. Yeah, I would call that.
I mean,
it had our favorite actor in it.
Yep.
What's his name?
What's his name? Movie? Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Yeah, a guy floating around in a tank, definitely, that's science fiction.
Yeah, did they put that one into like fantasy or something?
No, clearly it's drama. Come on.
I mean, definitely drama.
It is a drama. It's just, it's a matter of interpretation, right? Like, yeah.
I don't know. I always think of drama movies as serious. Your parents watch this kind of story, right?
But again, that's the only way that. Look at Joker being nominated. Look at some of the ones that have been nominated. Arguably the most populist thing that's been nominated over the last number of years was Black Panther. Beyond that, none of the Marvel. There was a small contingent of people being like, well, maybe this Spider-Man movie will be the thing that finally gets a little bit of traction, because it's a pretty emotional journey. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for Jaime, but it's a very emotional journey, and you can make a case that there's some good performances in there that might have been worthy of recognition, but no, not. It got nominated for one thing: visual effects.
Yeah, but there's also the other side of it. I mean, as I studied fine arts in university, and there's a sort of air about fine artists that's you're a serious sculptor, you're a serious painter, God forbid you make a graphic novel,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where the line gets drawn. Kevin Smith was being interviewed today. He was talking about, what's the guy who made Clerk? What's his name again?
Oh, Malcolm Ingram.
Malcolm Ingram, yeah. He was talking about how he wanted to make changes to the film, and Malcolm Ingram is like, no, that's my film. Like Kevin Smith is saying, that's my life. He goes, yeah, but that's my film. And he's like, oh, totally understood. I got to back off because that's the art or the artist talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there's kind of a line between Oscars is about film. It's not, or film. It's not it's what TV shows aren't nominated for Oscars.
But again, by that exact rationale, we're right back to where I started from, which is then why do I care? Really, I like cinema, but
so by the same token, though, I think the three of us would agree that many of the films that we've seen in I'm doing the air quote film category happen to also be talked about on this show because they happen to be sci-fi, right? I would argue that Blade Runner and Arrival and Dune are worthy of film, be nominated as films and be taken as seriously as film. I'm sure that the directors who sit down and storyboard and work with the directors of photography and costuming and are approaching this as filmmakers, not just some guy sells his comic book collection and makes a black and white, right?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that there's that's what I mean, but that's what I'm talking about, the air, the sort of putting on air is sort of an attitude of the what do you call it? The Academy, right? The Academy is they sort of see themselves as they're an ivory tower, right?
Yep.
And even though people who become members of the Academy and get votes and stuff like that, they're still approaching it from that this is serious filmmaking, Jonathan, not comic books, right?
Which that's fine, but then don't expect the mass populace to care.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day, if it is a way of recognizing auteurs and people who are committed to the integrity of fine cinema and everything else, that's fine. But then don't advertise it as a populist event. It's not. It's an elitist event.
Well, but I'm saying that. I think to me, I'm not saying that when you and I go as cinephiles to a movie, whether we watch Power of a Dog or in the Spider-Verse, right? We're still approaching it from the same point of view. We're there to be entertained, and we're there to deal with familiar characters. But at the end of the same time, we're evaluating the beauty of the film and the filmmaker's craft, right? And to your point, where do we measure this, or how do we reward this? We reward it by buying tickets, when Marvel makes money because they're Marvel, not because Thor what is it called? Dark World. What's your favorite movie there, Jaime?
Thor: The Dark World.
The Dark World, yeah. Not because the Dark World is great cinema, right? But it's approached in the same way, and it's financed and promoted in the same way, right? So, yeah. But I mean, like Power of a Dog is like the great American novel. It's kind of it doesn't sit in that same sort of character, same sort of area. And I'm sure people haven't even seen that movie, except for the fact that it's on Netflix or something, or... Yeah,
I think it's Netflix.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, I mean, I wouldn't even know about it if it hadn't been on Netflix, because who's going out these days and who's watching commercials and stuff? We're all zapped through them on our PVRs, right?
Yeah.
Or we watch on streaming services that don't have commercial.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyway, all right, let's move on to some lighter fare. Speaking of comic books and cartoons and stuff, Jaime.
I thought the pun there was the lighter fare when you have Lightyear.
Oh yes, lighter.
The
lighter
official
fare, yes.
Trailer, starring with your voice actors, amongst many, Chris Evans, so Captain America, as Buzz, and a bunch of other people, including director Taika Waititi as a voice actor. So we had seen the teaser before. This is the trailer that kind of gives you a little bit more of the flavor what the movie's about. And it does arrive on June 17th, 2022.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Looks good.
Yeah.
But it's not like Toy Story cartoony, plastic figures kind of. It looks like a legit, 3D rendered, interesting movie, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's got some kid stuff, and I guarantee there will be toys of the pet cat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
From the trailer. It was like a talking pet.
I think it's a
Android cat.
Robot cat, right?
Robot cat. Yeah. There'll definitely be toys of that available. But you're right. I think one of the things that's interesting about these 3D films is that with some of the stylized aspects of them, the advances are really going to be in the texture work.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you compare, original Toy Story to Toy Story 4, the most recent one. Like the basic character designs are pretty much the same. They didn't really change those, but the texture work is amazing. Like the other stuff looks like, oh, okay, that's cute and nice, even though it was groundbreaking for the time. And now it's like, oh my God, like you can see specular lighting in, Buzz's eye because he's a plastic doll. Yeah. You can see the reflection of Woody in his eye,
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the same thing here, where the character designs are definitely cartoony, but the textures themselves are amazing. It does look, realistic in a highly stylized kind of way.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that today when I was watching. As you know, I've been catching up on Clone Wars, and also I'm watching The Expanse as well, which is another show that has a lot of really interesting things. And I look at the 3D environments, like they have these Coruscant kind of landscapes and that kind of stuff, and even like back to Blade Runner again. When I look at the 3D rendered images, like the artists who work on that stuff must spend a single shot, a single frame in that could be like is equivalent to like a grandmaster painting back in the day, And I look at the amount of effort that goes, and it's amazing how far CG graphics, computer rendering, and all the texture working and your atmospheric effects and all that sort of stuff that I would have studied in university to sort of capture what something looks like. It's amazing how far that goes. And like I said, every single frame of what we see in a Star Wars cartoon, if you want to, I'm doing air quotes here with the Clone Wars, for example, like when you see some of these landscapes and the ships flying by and all that kind of stuff, it's amazing the amount of time and effort that goes into these things, but they look so amazing, It's really cool. And same thing with this Lightyear thing. It's not, Andy's bedroom anymore, right? It's like he's actually on a planet somewhere or on a world somewhere, right? Looks pretty cool.
So the ultimate question is, will either of you make an effort to see this in the theater, or you wait for it on Disney Plus?
Yeah. It's funny, yeah. It's something else. So Death on the Nile is playing in IMAX. I just saw a commercial for that during Discovery, and I'm like, yeah, I want to see that movie. I liked the first movie the first Poirot movie they redid, but and I asked myself the exact same question. Would I, considering where we are in the world with pandemics and stuff, would I go see that in IMAX? I still haven't seen the James Bond movie yet, right? Yeah. Wonder if I know somebody who has the disc that they could lend me.
You might just know somebody who could loan you the physical copy of that.
I know, because every now and then I'm going $6.99. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that same question crossed my mind, and so I kind of wonder, I don't know if I don't know if I can't remember. I must have seen Toy Story in the theater. I think you and I went to it, right?
I saw Toy Story on a date when I was in high school.
Well, that does, yeah. No, I meant the fourth one. I think
the fourth one. I can't remember if I saw that one.
Yeah, the one where they're in the daycare center and they're melting the toys in the incinerator.
Well, that's thing. 3. That's part 3. Part 4 is the one where they reunite with Bo Peep and they have the adventure where she's in the antique shop and the doll wants Woody's voice box and stuff.
The Spork thing.
Yes, Sporky.
Yeah, no, that one I saw. That one I saw on Disney Plus. Yeah, the Spork was not a character I was into at all.
Oh, he killed me. The Sporky, the Sporky shorts that they have on Disney Plus are hilarious. Yeah. Tony Hale's so good.
Oh, I'll have to go back and watch that then.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Yeah. I'm trash. Keeps throwing himself in the trash can. Oh, so good. So funny. I love Tony Hale. I mean, he just kills me, but yeah.
People use that one internet meme shot of him with Woody, and he's like, "You're trash, just like me," as a self-deprecating insult,
right?
To dual wield kind of thing.
Looks like good news for me.
More good news, everyone, for especially people like Jonathan, who are just in love with the way that Hulu works in the northern climes.
Wait a minute, hang on. Maybe this isn't good news for everyone.
Bad news,
I have
Canada.
no idea, but on the weight of it, good news, 51% positive news kind of way. So Futurama has apparently been revived by Hulu with many original cast members returning right now as of this recording. John DiMaggio, who voiced Bender, has still not been attached to the show, although I do not think it has ever been confirmed that he is not attached, meaning that he is given them the finger.
Yeah, he just hasn't agreed to terms.
They just haven't worked through it. Yeah. But Billy West, Katie Seagal, a whole bunch of other people that you'll recognize are coming back for, what did they say here? 20 new episodes. Don't know if that's a singular season of 20 or 2 episodes of 10, given the modern era of streaming.
Cool. Looking forward to it. But speaking of things you can't watch, Jonathan, or haven't been able to watch.
Were we?
Yeah, no, we are now. I was talking to Nicole, and she was telling me that she had seen the 2 South Park films, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they do fit into the show, but apparently this new season is a retelling, right? Like a sort of a. That's how she explained it to me. I haven't watched South Park in years, but she said that the new series is from a new footing, right? But the 2 movies that we haven't been able to see yet do fit into the previous ones.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to make an effort. I was actually looking today. I was thinking. I know we talked about Paramount Plus being available here in Canada now, and I looked at it and was like, so they're offering a 7-day free trial, and then it's $6 a month for Paramount Plus here. And I was like, should I just wait for that?
What's on Paramount Plus that we would want to watch that we don't already have for free with our tax-free, Sci-Fi channel?
Well, the benefit would be that you could watch Discovery earlier than the time that it airs on CTV Sci-Fi
or Crave, right? It's not even on Crave yet, right?
Yeah, it doesn't arrive on CTV Sci-Fi until Thursday nights, and it doesn't arrive on Crave until Friday mornings. So, as with the way that Jaime receives it, I believe it just drops at midnight, does it not?
Yeah, if I wanted to, I could stay up to midnight, watch it on, I guess, 12:01 a.m. on Thursdays. I generally tend to watch it during lunch because that's the most convenient time, and rarely watch it at dinner time. Whereas you guys have to pretty much watch it on dinner time, right?
I mean, we have to watch it in the evening. The only time that you can watch it is 9 p.m.
9 p.m.
Eastern time in Ontario, anyways. Yeah. So
I mean, midnight would be 3 a.m. for us too, right? So.
Yep.
I'm sure people would watch it if they decide to put it on then. I don't know. I don't understand what. I mean, is it selling soapboxes? Is it because they can get commercial revenue from showing it on CTV Space that they do that way? Yeah,
it's the ad sales for sure, but it's the cable subscriptions, right? They want people to pay for cable.
Yeah.
If you make it only available on cable within that window, obviously it's only exclusive on cable it's on at 9 o'clock, it's over by 10 o'clock, and it's up by 3 in the morning. So it's like a 5-hour window, basically. But yeah.
But it's funny, it's funny when you think about it. Now with all the subscription services, you could pay more in subscriptions if you do the collect them all thing than you do for cable.
Yeah,
I'm surprised cable is still charging $100 or whatever it is they're charging per month. They should drop it down to just to keep us, right?
Well, you're essentially paying for sports, right? Because each of the cable services own a sports network or 6. So that's what you're paying for.
Which is ridiculous because I don't watch sports at all. I mean, I hardly ever watch it. I might watch the highlight, shows that are on when I'm,
then you may want to consider whether or not you need cable anymore.
Trust me, this is not a conversation that has not happened in this house already for many, many, many years.
Yeah, I know why you have cable, so.
Well, yeah, but YouTube, we spend a lot of time on YouTube these days.
Yeah.
Gotta say.
Well, on Disney Plus now, right? I'm sure that's where Quinn watches a lot of stuff. But
No. I think Carol watched her first Crave show last week. She said, how do I turn it? Because I had to go upstairs and figure out how to log into Crave on the TV upstairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anywho. Good news, everybody.
More good news, everyone. Speaking of old men with good news, they announced this week when we're finally going to see the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that is coming to Disney+. So we got the announcement this week. It is coming on May the 25th.
Woo-hoo.
So that's good. We've got an actual date that we can work around. So timing wise, I guess I haven't looked, but I guess that comes after Moon Knight, which is the next sort of Marvel Disney Plus big thing. I assume Moon Knight sort of runs for that bit of March, April, and then we'll get the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, of which we've seen surprisingly little. We've only seen a little bit of they put out like a 1 minute little teaser that didn't really even show the show. All they showed was the concept sketches and stuff like that. So I guess it's interesting. We do know that Obi-Wan's going to be there. We know that Hayden Christensen's coming back to portray Darth Vader. Those are the two things we know. And in one of the concept drawings that they put in there, that we saw the Grand Inquisitor, which is a character for anyone who's watched Star Wars Rebels will recognize.
I'm curious whether Obi-Wan Kenobi will remember ever having owned droids before.
Well, maybe he suffers a blow to the head in this one that makes him forget that he owned R2-D2 at one point. Although, to be fair, he never owned him.
He never owned him. No, I know. We were talking about, I forget who I was talking to this morning about that he never really owned the droids. But, like, how could he, like, not remember?
Yeah. Well, he was old.
R2-D2. How could you not remember R2-D2? Come on. And he forgot that, Luke Skywalker's father was Darth Vader, but minor detail.
Little things. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this sits. It says it's set 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So it'll be interesting to see which period of time that is in Obi-Wan's life. We know that he starts the adventure on Tatooine. He's there ostensibly keeping a watchful eye on young Luke, who at that point would be a 10-year-old. And yeah, I mean, it's funny the loopholes you can find. So there's a very famous line that I'm sure both of you will recall from the original Star Wars, 1977, where Darth Vader is standing in the Death Star and he says, "I feel a presence I've not felt since," and sort of drifts off. And we're meant through this whole sort of storytelling, prequels, all the different stuff to kind of have the idea that the last time these two met was when they met on when one of them was on fire and the other one was walking away from the high ground. So I wonder if we're going to do a little revisionist history here and, not really revising, although, because we never really established that they've never met in the interim. So maybe we'll see them actually cross paths once more. Although I'm curious too, because again, the Grand Inquisitor, I can't recall. Have either of you watched Rebels? Tim, I don't think you have.
No, we're warming up to it.
I will make a pitch for it here just by saying, it's awesome. It's a really, really, really interesting part of Star Wars canon. It is fully canon, so everything that happens.
Don't I have to finish watching Clone Wars first, though?
You do.
Yeah.
But Rebels is very good, and it introduces this sort of because it's set just before the events of Rogue One. So, and again, right before the events of the original Star Wars series. And it's sort of the spark of the rebellion. It's really as the rebellion starting to come together and more people are joining, and it's sort of this upswell and everything else. But the Grand Inquisitor and the Inquisitors are this group of they're not Sith, but they are dark force wielders, and they are basically out hunting the last of the Jedis, the former Padawans, good force users and stuff like that. So I like that they're sort of intersecting those things as well. This stuff that they introduced in the Rebels canon and are now bringing forward in the same way that we just saw Cad Bane in Book of Boba Fett, a very not prominent character, but certainly a notable character from the Clone Wars series, and who was also in the Bad Batch, most recently in the first season. It's funny because I thought about Cad Bane after he appeared in that Boba Fett episode last week, and it's funny. I think of him as like a really important character and all that. And I looked it up, and he's only been in like 12 episodes. So yeah,
really, well, yeah.
But
he certainly does stand out. I mean, some of the enemies that you see in Clone Wars, he's one that definitely stands out. Or maybe it's because I'm thinking of Bad Batch, right?
Yeah, I mean, in Bad Batch, he famously has a spoilers, but he has a pretty cool fight with Fennec Shand, right?
Right. Yeah. Cool.
But all that to say, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they bring, as they have with Book of Boba Fett, to a lesser extent, The Mandalorian. It'll be interesting to see as they start to not canonize, because certainly they were already part of canon. The animated series, the Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch are canon, but to move them to live action really does feel like a more concrete step for some of these characters, for Ahsoka, for Cad Bane, for some of these characters who we knew from previous shows. It really is kind of it feels like a milestone. It shouldn't, because their animated experiences are just as valid, and they are, as we've said about the comic books, about the cartoon series, all of it is canon. It's like there's no less impact, but it's amazing how populist moving to live action is from the cartoons. There are people who would just say, oh, I'm never going to watch those, or cartoons, or there's too much of it, or whatever. And same way that people would say, oh, I'll never read the comic books. Well, it's your loss. All these stories are great, and they're canon. They're real. Like this is there's some really cool backstory stuff on I gotta be honest with you, the comic book adventures of Boba Fett are way better than the TV show. So
well, and I've also read some of the novels that go between the
Aftermath and stuff. Yeah. Aftermath is the first appearance of Cobb Vanth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Here you go.
So are there any hand models in the next story?
No, this time we actually got a real look. So we kind of took the piss out of the promo posters that they put out for the impending Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power series that's coming to Amazon Prime in September, because they put out these posters that were basically just the gloved hands holding swords, and they put out a whole variety of them, and it was like, well, that's cool, but it doesn't really tell me anything about this. So Vanity Fair this week published a pretty sprawling article with a little behind the scenes look at the production of this, including interviews with the cast and the crew and sort of back context, and a whole bunch of photos that show the characters in their outfits and everything else, and sort of identify who's playing what, and it's definitely a much more robust look at what they're doing and who's doing what, and some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's pretty cool. I mean, you had to assume like they're gonna spend with a B $1 billion to make this. They are not skimping. It looks huge and epic and everything else. Whether or not it clicks and resonates and everything else is to be determined. But we'll put this into the show notes. I do highly recommend giving it a read. It's interesting because they do actually tell you a little bit more. Again, if you want to come into it completely, cold, you can certainly do that, but it's interesting to sort of see a little bit more about the time period and the story and a little bit of the characters and just sort of the grandeur of what they're trying to do. It's no phallus shaped rocket, but it's a pretty big moonshot for Bezos and Amazon to have acquired these rights and to try and tread on some very big ground covered by Peter Jackson really well. So, Hobbit notwithstanding, it's a big project. Like, this is arguably the biggest thing that's ever been made for television. So yeah, it's neat to sort of have a look at it and sort of get a little taste of it, as we still have to wait until the first week of September for this thing to finally hit our screens. I just I don't know. It would be ridiculous to say it's too big to fail, but boy, oh boy, they're pulling out all the stops on this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got a huge fan base, right? So
yeah,
who knows?
Interesting that the source material is really, like they say, it's obviously they've mined the well of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, obviously The Hobbit, they unnecessarily elongated, and then this is sort of based on the appendices of the trilogies and a lot of the sort of extra stuff in there talking about, the backstory. It would be like, well, exactly what they're doing with the next Game of Thrones thing, right? The new Game of Thrones, the House of Dragons thing that's coming is essentially mining the backstory that George R.R. Martin, created this sort of backstory about what happened in the House of Targaryen. And so here we go. We're gonna mine that and expand that and sort of spread that out. Will it click with audiences? 50 hours worth of it over 5 years? Maybe. Will it make Amazon Prime, will it raise its stature up to Disney Plus, Netflix heights? I mean, we talked about it a little bit during the Spockies, but the gold standard now is probably Disney Plus. It probably passed Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of the premiere stuff. I guess the go-to place for stuff.
The question is now, like, what is 3, and is spot number 2 attainable? We talked about how Netflix is and I want to say struggling. That's ridiculous, but it certainly seems to have lost a little bit of steam to Disney Plus. Is there a window for Amazon Prime to step in there with a Prime product like this? Pardon the pun, and knock Netflix back down another pedestal?
Yeah, but Amazon Prime, it doesn't, I don't know, maybe it's the interface or something, but it doesn't, to me, even though it doesn't stand out as a competitor. Like,
they have some great it kind of looks junky shows, considering the amount of money that they spent on it. It looks
like a bargain bin. It looks like when you scroll through 3 or 4 movies, and then you're just scrolling through. You can scroll for days and not find anything to watch, right? Because it's kind of like the $2.99 bin, right? That's the impression I have of it, right?
Yep. Well, speaking of people who could acquire Sony, maybe that's what they should do. Wouldn't that be hilarious? We're doing a Spider-Verse right here on Amazon Prime. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I think is just, it's interesting that that's still out there, is that Sony is an independent studio and it's selling a lot of its license for first run on streaming services to Netflix. But in theory, that's out there too. But anyway, but I digress. We'll focus on Lord of the Rings here. But it's interesting to think of what these different players could be doing over the next little while to try and maximize their audience.
Cool. All right. Well, I was sort of hinting at the fact that I'm going to talk about Kevin Smith, but this is follow-up from last week's show where we talked about, in the after show, actually, we talked about the movie Clerk, which is the movie made by Kevin Smith's friend Malcolm Ingram, who happens to be Canadian. But it starts off with him talking to Tom Power on CBC's Q show. This was, I think, was in the podcast app today, so I think it was the show yesterday. But he starts off talking about how, he had Georgia Straight is like, sort of a popular kind of variety type magazine that's out of Vancouver, and where Kevin Smith went to school for filmmaking. But there was a review at the time that Clerks came out that when it was first making the circuit, that there was this amazing movie by this Canadian director, and he wears hockey sweaters and like nobody's like talking about it. It's kind of a great thing. And he said it's funny that the reviewer thought, or the person who wrote the review to the Georgia Straight thought that Kevin Smith was Canadian. Because he's so, and he's sort of like, well, New Jersey is kind of like the younger brother to New York, and in the same sense that Canada is kind of like the younger brother to United States. It's sort of like Canada is like sees itself as the New Jersey of North America, which is hilarious. But so if you're into Kevin Smith, and he's talking to Tom Power about the making of the movie and some of the decisions that were made about it, and how they talked about they weren't like Malcolm didn't want to put anything about Harvey Weinstein in the movie, and then Kevin sort of said, yeah, but that is kind of like, that's the elephant in the room. We don't want to make it seem like we're whitewashing the story, right? Mm-hmm. 'Cause it's interesting when you watch the movie, like all of a sudden it fades to black, and then they talk about Malcolm or about Harvey Weinstein, and that was sort of Kevin Smith sort of wanted to put, like, they were gonna, Malcolm didn't want to put that in the movie at all, right? So because he didn't want to give him any airtime, but so it's interesting, like if you're a Kevin Smith fan, and I think anybody who, like, as Tom Power said, it's kind of like he's built this universe based on the fact that his fans will watch everything he makes, right?
Yep.
Or anything he makes.
Yep.
And he's a super funny guy and a great talker, and like just talks about the craft of making film and about this story, and about and sort of origin stories a bit about how Clerk kind of went through the whole thing. And it was like the second movie to ever be bought at Sundance. Most of them get bought shortly after, right? But the other one was the one about the LGBTQ women, free something or other. Anyway, so listen to this show. It's a podcast here. You can listen to it on any of your favorite tools, and I'll put a link here to the Apple Podcast site where you can check it out. But yeah, it's a really cool interview. I highly recommend it. Cool. All right. Well, it's that time of the show where we start talking about something Star Trek. And this time we're back to Discovery, or the raison d'etre for this, or the reason for being, for those of you who don't speak French. The raison d'etre for the show, we're talking about, what's it called? All In, the episode?
All In, yes.
Right. And are you doing the recap, John?
I am, yes.
You are? Okay. Well, off to you.
Yeah, so we pick up pretty much right where we left off in the, this was a good, month ago anyways, where we had left with Book and Tarka had stolen the new prototype Spore Drive and were taking off because they wanted to go and attack the makers of the big giant space anomaly that was eating things up, as opposed to the diplomatic approach, which is what the Federation and the non-Federation partners had agreed upon. So, we start with the sort of scramble all fighters, everybody get out there, go get these guys, we got to stop them, approach. The president basically, very politely asks Admiral Vance and Burnham, did you know that this was coming? And, they, of course, say, no, we didn't. And then she sort of says, well, then why didn't you know that this was going to happen? Because you should have, if you knew this guy that well, which I thought was a pretty good burn line from the president. Burnham sort of says, hey, okay, yep, my bad, I'm on it, I'll go look for him. And Vance and the president agree, no, actually, you're too close to this, you shouldn't be going after him, we'll find something else for you, everyone else is going to go look for these two and try and stop them. And then we cut back to Book and Tarka, who are on the run, and they are talking about, if this all works out the way that we anticipate it does, then, the Federation will have no choice but to pardon us afterwards. Tarka is trying to sort of assuage Book and make him feel better for betraying Burnham, betraying the Federation, all these people that have invested in him by stealing the Spore Drive and taking this course of action. It's at this point that Tarka sort of says, hey, by the way, in order to make my plan come to fruition, we're going to need some isolinium, which is the MacGuffin chemical that is going to, or element that is going to cause this explosion that can stop this what do they call that thing again? I keep wanting to say OMD, but that's
DMA?
DMA. Yes, DMA.
The OMG.
BFG. So they decide, okay, we're going to do that. So we have to go find this stuff. And of course, with his past as a courier, he says, well, I might have a place that we can go and find this stuff, Book says. We go back to Vance and Burnham, and Vance is sort of, steaming a little bit. You can see the heat lines coming off his head. And he sort of says, why are they doing this? Like, what are we going to do? Like, why is this happening? And he basically goes back on what he said when he was standing in front of the president, says, I would never publicly disagree with the president, but now that's just the two of us, I am ordering you to go and stop these two, whatever it takes. And we go to our opening credits, we come back, and we are in engineering. They're trying to talk about, well, what are they going to do to try and figure out how to get a look at the Great Barrier, which is where they believe that the creators of the BFG are hiding. And so Zora,
BFG.
Yeah, it's a Doom joke for anyone who's played some Doom. Right. So Zora weighs in and says, well, hey, actually, what was it? What was it they called the device that she used to be? The sphere. That's right. The sphere data.
Because it was the sphere data.
That's right. So she says, yes, the sphere actually has information on this, and there's a race called the Stilf, and the Stilf are they have interacted with the Orions, and so if we can find some maps that are created by the Stilf, then maybe we can try and figure out exactly where this hiding behind the Great Barrier these people are that are controlling this weapon, this calamitous weapon that is scorching planets and killed all of Book's people. So we cut to Book and Tarka. They are going to from there they say they're going to go to Parathia to find a broker who can get them the maps that they need. We cut to Tarka and Book, and they are going to coincidentally the same place. They're going to Haz Lazaro's Karma Barge, which is an excellent sci-fi name, by the way. Haz Lazaro's Karma Barge. That might be one of my fantasy football team names next year. And then we get to Burnham and Oo are the ones who are going to go and find this star chart. So they are going in there looking for the star charts. So Book and Tarka end up at the Karma Barge. They meet Haz Lazaro. Lazaro basically says, I can hook you up with some isolinium, but you owe me for previous debts. Turns out that he had an unfortunate interaction with Book last time they met that cost him a lot of money. So he says, I'll take your money, but you're going to need a lot more if you want to get this isolinium. And they say, well, actually, we noticed that you're having a problem with cheaters in your club. Maybe we could help you with that, and that way you can we can reach an agreement. So he says, fine, if you can stop the people who are swindling me, then perhaps I can supply you with this isolinium you need. So they go out there and they see sort of this alien bug-looking creature with these eyes that are sort of flashing in sequence, and they think that maybe they're onto something there. Burnham shows up, of course, and Burnham and Book interact, and they have a conversation about it, and Book kind of brings it really into perspective. Everyone's like caught off guard, like, I can't believe Book did this. I can't believe Book did this. And he says, why are you so surprised that I did this? The first time we met, I like hijacked a ship to try and save an endangered species. Like, this is who I am. Why are you so surprised by that? I thought that was a really nice way of contextualizing this, because it's easy to look at Burnham and the Federation as right and Book and Tarka as wrong, but I think when you think about the way that this person has continuously acted based on his beliefs, it's definitely a little more of a gray area. And it definitely, for me, I think, and maybe for some audience members, it definitely made you think a little bit more about it from both sides. I thought that was a really
and she ran with him for a number of years too, while she waited for the Discovery to catch up with her, right? Yeah.
So I'm sure, and there's a whole lot of allusions to their relationship during that time. In this one, they jokingly call her, was it right hook or left hook or something? Clearly she's made some choices during that stretch too. So I thought that was a really good way of putting this less on Book as being the bad guy and more as Book continuing to follow his same moral code. I thought that was really nicely played. Well done by the writers there. so they come out of that one and he sort of says, well, what are you going to do? And she says, well, I'm going to have to stop you one way or the other. We go back to the Discovery and we follow up on Stamets and Culber. So, last episode when we left off a number of weeks back, Culber was really burning himself out. He was trying to be the ship's counselor and he's trying to be the doctor and he was taking on a lot and he's stress cleaning. He's cleaning their quarters and Stamets comes in and sort of says, are you okay? And I loved the part where Culber keeps barking at the automated cleaning devices. No, I told you no.
Yeah. Go back to your dock.
Yeah, go back to your dock. Like bad Roomba. So, yeah, he was like stressed out of his mind. He blames himself for the decisions Book made, saying, I stretched myself too thin. I didn't devote enough to him. And now he's done this. And Stamets sort of says, dude, like, you're not responsible for everybody's actions. Get a grip. Clearly you're just stressed out of your mind. Why don't we go to the holodeck? We'll go look at look at the flowers.
Yeah.
And so, it was a nice scene. I love the chemistry between those two performers. And I thought, they have one of the most naturalistic relationships on television right now. They really do. They're both so good, and it was just a really nice, sweet moment between the partners. We go back to the the Karma barge, and Owo has come up with a strategy for how they can try and earn the money that they need to try and buy the isoliniums so that Book and Tarka can't buy the isolinium. And it's to go into this prize fight, essentially. And so she goes in there and is advertised as, oh, wow, Joanne, oh, wow, Owoshikun, which was hilarious. And so she goes into this fighting pit, and the rule is basically first one to the mat loses, and so at 2-1 odds she gets her butt kicked, at 10-1 odds she gets her butt kicked, and then they eventually get it to was it 45-1?
Yes. Yeah.
I think it was, because it was like 3-1, 10-1, and 45-1.
So at 45-1, they're like, here we go. And so Owoshikun, this giant hulking character, Ato Kur, she just basically, she goes, punches him in the groin, she punches him in the throat. She plays pretty dirty and ends up wasting this guy, and they win at 45-1, and they win this huge stack of gold pressed latinum. And very funny scene as they come out the other side of that one, where the guy sort of says, hey, you tried to you hustled us, we're taking your money, and they're like, are you though? And then they kind of kick those guys' butts and send them packing. Meanwhile, at pretty much the exact same time, the Tarka Book Alliance are trying to find the cheaters. They figure out the cheater is actually a changeling. They see the bug creature morph into another humanoid, and they realize, oh, we're dealing with a changeling here. Unclear if this is the exact same changeling race as we have seen. Is this a changeling as in Odo? Is this a changeling as in the weird random character from Star Trek 6? Unclear, but kind of looked a little Odo-y.
People on the internet were saying that was a capital C changeling, and they were saying that they saw the Odo style makeup for a brief moment.
I saw that too. It was a little soft in the face, and I thought, well, maybe that's what they were trying to go for. A bit of a weird one, just because obviously that's our first reference to the changelings in this time frame, right? So why there? Why that? Why aren't you in a giant puddle somewhere on a planet? Anyways. So the changeling is caught, and so both, sort of simultaneously, Burnham and Owo go with their cash, and Book and Tarka, now having completed the mission that they were given by Haz Lazaro, they both sort of show up and say, hey, we both have a claim, we both got what you wanted, give us the isolinium.
Yeah.
And he says, well, there's only one way to settle this. We've actually got a third bidder here. I think we're going to have to go to the traditional way of doing this, which is Leonian poker. For whoever wins this Leonian poker tournament gets the prize. And so, yeah, Burnham and Book start talking about it. They recognize that the third bidders, that this man and woman, are disgruntled former Emerald Chain folks, and they're thinking about what they could possibly want the isolinium for. And so they realize, like, no matter what, they can't get it. So the two of them basically team up to game the poker game, so that they knock the two of them out, and then they become the last two. I didn't find the poker game worked well. I put it here. There's no drama in a game you don't understand. When you show me a bunch of cards that don't mean anything, it's awfully hard to get invested.
Well, by the same token, I thought, like, why are they showing, like, because I mean, what are we, 1,000 years in the future, and they're still using like spades and diamonds and hearts, and I mean, they didn't look like, they were trying to make them look like fancier, but like they're still the same paper cards we've been playing with.
Yeah.
Our whole lives, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it just, for me, it kind of took me out, where they're like, ooh, the tension is high. I'm like, no, it's not. I have no idea what's happening here. Like, it's just
exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Where's the river? What's the river?
Yeah, exactly. As the game's going on, Owo has a conversation with Tarka, and she basically gets very quickly susses out, why are you doing this? Figures out what Tarka's motivation is. And Tarka's motivation we already knew, which is that, this was, he thought this was the only way to see his beloved friend again, right? So the Chainers are ousted. They have this sort of showdown between Burnham and Book. They both decide to go in. It's a flush. It's a straight by Burnham and a flush by Book. So flush wins. And he basically says, she says, "Are you okay with burning bridges?" And he says, "Yep." And then he says,
No,
all right.
She says, shall we end this? And he goes, yeah, let's end it.
Yeah, which is a lovely double meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, but his ended sounded like let's end the relationship.
Yeah. So basically, and then we cut back to Federation headquarters, or Starfleet headquarters, and I thought, in that moment, I was like, well, he won a card game. Like, why don't you trip him and punch him in the face and steal this? Like, that just made no sense to me. And then we cut immediately to Rillick, who's like, hey, why didn't you trip him and punch him in the face and take his stuff? I was like, yeah, why didn't you do that? So it's at that point where we get revealed that when they were inspecting the goods, the isolinium, that Burnham had put a tracker on it. So she's like, well, I didn't need to do that in that moment. I didn't have authority to do anything there, but now we can go get him. So yeah, so they know where they can find the two of them. So clearly that's where they're going to go. They get interrupted by Saru, who's saying, Mr. Stamets needs to see you all immediately. So they go down, and Stamets says, well, we got the maps that you got from the mission, and we plugged it in there, and so now we know what we're dealing with. There's this 228 million kilometer black blob near on the other side of the Great Barrier that is drawing massive amounts of power, and this must be where they are. And so they basically deduce, well, it would take an incredible amount of power to make something like that, and figure out, well, maybe it's something like boronite, which I don't think is a real element. I haven't kept up with my periodic table, but I don't recognize boronite. And through that, they actually figure out, that this weapon, or what they thought was a weapon that was going in and atomizing planets and doing stuff, was actually a dredge. It's mining for this substance, boronite, that is that they're not necessarily doing this for nefarious intent, that it's just this device that they send out into beyond their space to go look for this element that they need, so that they can keep the power on, so that they can have this sustained space. And so now, knowing that this is basically, it's not a hostile intent, that it's a mining vessel essentially, they realize, like, even more so, like, we got to stop Book and Tarka now, because if they attack these guys and they have this technology, they are gonna mess us up. So that's where we sort of end, is the dun dun dun, we have to stop them. Thoughts? Good? Bad? Was it a grabber? Do you feel like this was like a back out of the gates strong kind of performance from Disco?
I mean, there were some fun things in it. Like, it was kind of interesting. It was, the first part of the show didn't really engage me at all. But once they got to the what do you call it? The Karma Barge.
The Karma Barge.
That was kind of fun. Like the Snidely Whiplash character was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of just turned the tables on them a lot. Yeah, it was. And there was some tension between the two of them, Book and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting episode, but it wasn't like earth shattering or surprising. To be honest with you, like, I know the Stamets and Culber scene in the middle kind of felt a little out of place in this episode because it just kind of popped in and they had this little discussion. And I'm also thinking to myself too, like, a doctor would realize that he can't solve his patient's problem. I mean, he can help his patients, but like, he wouldn't take ownership the way that this character does, which is kind of strange, right?
It did seem mildly unprofessional.
Well, yeah, I mean, like from the point of view of like, you can't own all the problems out there. Like, that's just you wouldn't be able to operate, right?
Yeah.
You have to have some distance between you, and you're a caring, compassionate person. I mean, I have a great doctor now, but I'm sure he doesn't lose sleep over my particular problems.
Yeah. Well, and that's not good for you, and that's, I guess, the message here is like not good for Culber either.
Yeah.
I was thinking about your question there about like, how do I feel? I think it was a pretty solid, what is this, 8th episode? 7th or 8th episode? What did you say it was at the beginning? 8th episode. It feels a little weird because they're like, hey, you remember this thing? I'm like, no, I don't, dude. It's been like 4 or 5 weeks, however long it's been. You're gonna have to help me out. The recap didn't give me everything I needed because do you guys remember the situation that Owo mentions in the shuttle? Like, oh, thanks for bringing me because I had that weird situation with who? Saru, maybe? What was she doing?
Sorry, which part?
What was her unfortunate situation? So when Michael Burnham and Owo are on the shuttle on their way to the casino planet.
Oh yeah,
Owo was like, "Why did you bring me? Why did you bring me? You don't really need me to do this stuff." And oh, by the way, thank you for giving me this opportunity, even though I messed up last time, and I don't remember.
Yeah,
what
she had questioned. She had basically pushed. She had pushed Saru's call because Burnham was off on a mission and Saru was in charge, and Owo pushed on him saying like, basically, I don't think you're making the right call. And he basically said like, that's an order. He had to basically like put her in place at one point in a previous episode. So Burnham had not interacted with Owo on screen for us since that point. So it was sort of Owo saying like, I know I shouldn't have done that. They had already cleared the air about why she did that. She lost one of her friends when she was young, and it really touched a nerve. And yeah, so it was in the episode where they were stuck. And remember the episode where they were stuck inside the pocket and the pocket was closing in around them. Owo wanted to do a certain thing, and Saru basically said no.
That's right. They were all losing their oxygen, right? Yeah, see, that's a disadvantage of having the huge break in between, that they didn't cover that part in the recap, which I guess it wasn't important for this episode, but it did make me think, what is she talking about? What happened? I don't recall.
No, I had to fish that one out myself. I was like, was that last episode? I can't remember where we left off. I'm like, oh no, that was the episode before last. Okay, so that was like 7 weeks ago. Okay.
One thing that I did not know, but the internet knows, is people are saying that the material or elements or material or whatever it was that was being mined, boronite. People said that comes from a reference in Voyager's episode, the Omega Directive. And the Borg were using that to synthesize Omega molecules. So that kind of gives an idea of the seriousness of what the DMA mining machinery is doing. That this species leaves like a wood chipper running essentially, right? And this is the scale of their farming equipment, so to speak, their mining equipment, and who knows what their weapons are like is kind of interesting.
Not a killer start to the second half of the season. It was a good episode. There were certainly things to like in there. I find it's those moments, the leaps of logic moments. Like, Rillick's right. Like, why wouldn't they just follow them out the door and kick them in the knees? Like, or, you know, like they walk into the place and they have to, like, they can't bring any of these. She explicitly says, like, oh, we're not allowed to bring weapons in there. So obviously it's not like they're going to walk in there and just phaser them and walk them out. But, like, there had to have been opportunities to deal with that differently. You know, place a quick call to the Federation, have them, like, you know, waiting outside the ship, you know. Those leaps of logic ones are the ones that bother me most on these shows, where you're like, there had to have been a way to stop those two from leaving with the Isolinium, right?
Yeah.
I feel like your answer is to be like, Book, okay, well, we have to part ways here. Let me give you one last kiss. Oh, Vulcan nerve pinch. And then Tarka, smart as he is, be like, what happened? It's like, neck pinch. Oh.
Yeah, no, that's perfect timing. That's perfect. Like, we've already established that happens. Like, just get it done. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, unless he has, like, you know, since this is the future, maybe they've got, you know, like a heart rate monitor. It's like, okay, if I go unconscious, automatically beam me like 100 yards away and then rock a stim pack so that I wake up and run away. Yeah. Well,
again, we'll see as the momentum starts to pick up. Clearly, I mean, we did move the plot along. Now we got the whole, you know, the casino stuff notwithstanding. Now we've moved it forward to, we know where this race is. We know that they're clearly extremely powerful, although we kind of knew that already. But now we kind of know a little bit more about what the stakes are at, and we know that it's not a deliberate attack per se. And I think that was something that we kind of had to reconcile with that. The episode that preceded this, where they were having the discussion over, well, is it an attack and do we need to retaliate, or is it a mistake and we need to correct it, right? So now we know that based on what they've discovered, or at least hypothesized, we know that the judgment that Burnham advocated for with the Federation was the right one, and that Book is in the wrong. And I think we're pretty clear on the fact that Tarka is a doorknob.
Yeah, cool.
All right, should we move on to Book of Boba Fett, the grand finale of the Book of Boba Fett?
Is it the grand finale?
This was the last episode.
It's a finale
of the season.
Of season 2. Yes, this is the end of the season. It's the end of season 2.5.
2.5. Oh,
The Mandalorian 2.5. Yeah. Honestly, do not. Well, we'll get into more at the end there, but all right. So I'll give you a quick rundown. We start out in Mos Espa, the bombed out remnants of Sanctuary, the nightclub, which we saw blow up last time. They do not even reference Garsa Fwip, the character played by Jennifer Beals.
I was going to say, yeah.
Safe to say she's dead. Like, I did not see a scenario how she could have survived what happened in there, and clearly she didn't. But I kind of thought, in retrospect, what a huge waste of a woman's talents, because she's a fine actress and really just didn't amount to anything at all. I guess it's supposed to be like a mild motivator where, you know, Fett sort of says, hey, I guess I let these people down. Like, yeah, dude, you did. But yeah, I thought it was kind of a perfect summation of how wasted the character of Garsa Fwip was, that they didn't even acknowledge her death. So anyway, they decide that they are going to stay put there. They've got Fennec and Boba. We've got Din Djarin and the Mandalorian. They're there, and they're going to basically reinforce it. They're not going to go and fall back to Boba Fett's palace. They're going to stay there, and they're going to defend the city. We go to Mos Eisley. We see Cad Bane and the Pikes along with the mayor. They are there. We get the information revealed that the Syndicate were the ones who killed the Tuskens and not the Nikto speed bikers. Hilarious in retrospect, considering the like exquisite destruction of the Nikto speed bikers that we saw a couple episodes back. Later in the episode, we'll get forward to this as we go through it. But Cad Bane basically says, you know, you're a murderer just like me to Boba Fett. Yeah, he's right. He's 100% right. He's absolutely unequivocally right. Yes, mass murderer. Yes, very much so, because he just wiped out all those guys for nothing.
Yeah, It's like, you're trash, just like
exactly.
me.
Yeah, come on, Forky, you're trash. So, anyways, we go to take a look at the Pelly Moss place in Mos Eisley, and is it Mos Eisley or Mos Espa? I can't remember which city she's supposed to be in. Maybe she is in Mos Espa.
I don't remember.
So
either.
she ends up basically seeing this X-Wing come in. She's kind of freaked out, thinking like, well, because they're essentially now the space cops. She's like, "Oh, sorry to bother you, officer. I wasn't doing anything here." And it turns out that it's R2 dropping off Grogu. Interesting way of doing that. There was a lot of speculation in the week in between the last two episodes. Well, will Luke join the fight? Will Luke be part of this final stand against the syndicate? Fine way to do that. Grogu has made his choice. He has chosen to be a Mandalorian and not a Jedi. And Luke is like, fine, I'm having my droid drop you off somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, how do we know he didn't steal the X-Wing, right? And
well, because R2's flying it, right? Like, Grogu's not flying it, R2's flying it. Yeah. But
do we know that?
Yeah, he got Ubered to Tatooine, I think.
Yeah, no, Pelly Moss says that. She says to one of their pit droids, like, I can see, because she sort of says, like, "Oh, what are you doing in there?" And so I can see that the astromech's the one actually flying.
Sure, yeah.
But anyways, so they do that. We get a little cute scene between Pelly and Grogu, and then we go back to Mos Espa, and Cad shows up and is sent in as the negotiator, and they send the mayor's major domo out to negotiate with some very funny terms written down by Boba Fett. It's like, "I will give you nothing, you will die on the streets." This very funny sort of trashing. The strategy that they had to protect the city was to divide the forces of good. So the mods are in the Aqualish section of town. Chrysanthemum's in the area with the Trandoshans, coincidentally, and the Gamorreans are up on the ridge, and they are there trying to protect this other area, and everybody else is in the sanctuary. All of it goes to hell when, of course, the Aqualish, who are the Walrus Men for people who are not in the know, they attack the mods, have them pinned down, and they start killing them. Chrysanthemum, just this massive number of Trandoshans come after him, and he kind of looks happy that they're coming. And the Gamorreans, those two poor Gamorreans who they've just had it rough this whole series, basically get thrown off like a 300-foot cliff, which is pretty dark. Look out below, exploding bacon. But so they're like, okay, how are we gonna deal with this? They're like, okay, so Fett basically says, to the major domo, like, where are they? Where are the leadership of this group? And so he confesses to where they are in Mos Eisley, and he says to Fennec, Boba says to Fennec, just go take care of these guys. So Fennec takes off, and then she basically, on the way out of town, she stops and she starts picking off the Aqualish and saves the remaining mods so that the mods can join the fight at the sanctuary. And so it's at that point, of course, the Pikes arrive at the sanctuary. They are coming en masse, and they are armed and ready for business. So it's looking like, sort of the Western trope of Last Stand. The major domo, yes, it has the negotiations. They have a big fight there where Mandalorian and Boba Fett with their rocket packs are fighting with the syndicate, with the Pikes. That part was pretty cool. I gotta admit, I really got, there was a little shiver up my spine when they were just both flying around. That was not as many moments like that in this finale as I would have liked, but that moment where the two of them were back to back fighting and stuff was pretty cool to see. These two characters that we've come to enjoy over the years. We got a nice use of the knee rockets, the Boba Fett's knee rockets. So again, things are looking pretty brutal. The destroyer droids, these giant, I call them the Desteroid droids because I think later on they call them the Scorponok droids, but they're like destroyer droids from the prequel series on steroids are attacking. The Freetowners arrive, the led by the Weequay are coming in to the rescue. Cad Bane had sort of taunted earlier in the episode, oh, they're not coming. I shot and killed their sheriff and they're not coming. And we'll circle back to that at the end. The mods, of course, show up. The mods that were saved by Fennec show up, and Chris Santon shows up, and he's just like dragging bodies behind him, still fighting, covered in
dragging his foot.
Dragging his leg behind him, covered in cuts and scrapes, and he's just like, what a baller this guy is. He's such a great character. Boba Fett gets the idea, okay, well, it's time to bring out the big guns, so he drops his sights down and he fires the big rocket that he keeps in his backpack. Nope, that doesn't stop the Scorponok droids. So I don't know how far you guys are in Clone Wars, but there's a whole episode about how you stop destroyer droids, right? Low and slow. You got to go low and slow. You can't throw something at their shields. It'll bounce off. You have to go low and slow, slowly under it, and then it'll detonate the thermal detonators. And I just kept finding myself this whole battle going, no, low and slow, low and slow.
Yeah, I kept trying to think about how to get through the force field as well, right? So
yeah, like that's, again, they've established how you get through those things. They just apparently didn't get that lesson. So at that point, Peli Mos shows up. She's got Grogu. Mandalorian is both thrilled and disgusted. He's like, I'm really happy to see you, little guy, but oh my, we are in so much trouble here. So Boba Fett says, cover me. I've got an idea. He goes back to his palace. And of course, the inevitable payoff of here he is riding the Rancor, shows up in town. And so then we get some cool, Rancor versus giant Scorponok droid fight scene stuff going on in there.
Lots of collateral damage from the Rancor too, right?
Yeah, it's so funny because earlier in the episode, they talk about like, well, we need to protect the town. The town's really important. The town's important to the people. We want to protect the town. We don't want to destroy the town. And then the Rancor kind of trashes the town along with the Scorponok droids. I'm like, mission not accomplished. So
he even does the Empire State Building climb as well. Right?
Yeah. So that comes in a little bit. So basically, the Rancor kills the first or destroys the first Scorponok droid. The second one, they use a little bit of teamwork. They end up destroying that one too. And then the Rancor is basically on a rampage. Yeah, does the King Kong, climbs up the largest tower in town and is smashing it and crashing it and stuff like that. They end up basically bringing it down, and they're trying to figure out how to stop it. It kind of gives Din Djarin a good whack. And in the end, it's, of course, little Grogu who uses the Force, does the... Is anybody else... Crocodile Dundee? Remember Crocodile Dundee and the steer?
Exactly. Yeah. And he closes his eyes, and I used to do it with my cat, actually.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, cool. So he puts the Rancor to sleep. The Rancor sleeps, and then of course we know that little Grogu, it takes a lot out of him when he does this. So he curls up next to the Rancor, has a little nappy. Very cute. So then we end up with, of course, the showdown. I sort of skipped ahead to the Rancor, but the showdown comes where it's Cad versus Boba Fett. This is where, again, the backstory matters. If you've watched all of the Cad Bane episodes, some of which involved Boba when Boba was a boy, and you know the connection between Cad Bane and Jango, all of this is so much more important than what happens here, which is in the last episode, we saw this guy show up. So if you didn't know who Cad Bane was and you hadn't watched the Clone Wars episodes, what you'd get was, who the hell is this guy? Oh, okay, I guess he's some Western badass guy. And then in here, you get the feeling that they know each other, but you don't really understand the context of it. And then they have this showdown where... at this point, Cad is supposed to be about 80. And I don't know about his species, whether or not they age differently, but he's theoretically quite an old person at this point. he's still fast enough that he outdraws Boba, shoots him, beats him up, takes his helmet off, and of course the tables turn. Boba uses some of his Tusken Raider training to turn the tables, flips Bane over. It's at this point where Bane sort of says, you're trash like me, you're a murderer like me, and then in a weird moment, Boba's like, "Yep," and just kills him.
Yeah, with the
gaffy stick.
Tool.
Yeah,
the gaffy stick. Yeah, that, because I mean, he does a couple of times. He tries to get under Boba's skin by talking about the fact that the Pikes killed his Tusken family, right? So.
Yeah, and again, that was like so telegraphed, but yeah, it's just if I didn't know the Clone Wars stuff and I was just watching these new live action series on Disney Plus, the death of Cad Bane would be almost nothing to me. Like it would lack so much impact. For me as a fan of the series, I was shocked that it happened, and yet it made perfect sense if you understand the relationship between the two of them, that in that moment Boba would finally kill him. So it was a weird moment, but it was also, it just seemed really strange where he was like, you're trash like me, you're a murderer like me, and Boba's like, yup, and just like kills him. It just felt so like, isn't that the moment where the hero is supposed to take the high ground and say, well, no, I'm just going to put you in jail, or no, I'm going to, break your hand so that you can't shoot anymore, or something. No, just runs him through. Like, oh, all right. But a strange scene nonetheless. That one's sort of stuck with me. I've been thinking about that one a lot the last 24 hours or so. So yes,
especially because we've lost a really cool character. Right?
Well, we did. I mean,
maybe.
What's that?
I mean,
no,
maybe because Fennec Shand got shot in the gut.
It's true, although I did look online today to sort of see if there was a consensus, and the consensus seems to be no. The like, this is meant to be his death. It's supposed to be sort of the closing of the circle. I tend to take the whole, if I see an on-screen death, it means more. If I see an off-screen death, it means less. I don't. Like, he was lying there, he was run through. I think the whole point is he's supposed to be dead, which is, I mean, as it goes, not a terrible death for such an interesting character. You're right, it's a bit of a shame, but it's also not like you could go back now and use Cad Bane again. You just have to use him in like the Obi-Wan series, or you need to use him more in Bad Batch, or like, he's not gone. He's just gone going forward in this live action universe, which is disappointing considering, like, really all things being equal, he didn't get a lot of play in this series for such an interesting character. But I guess I can live with it. I would have loved it if he'd gotten away, because he's such a great character, and I would have loved to have seen him pop up again somewhere down the road.
Yeah, if you did the Darth Vader spinning in the TIE fighter from the first movie kind of deal,
Yeah, or just, again, like if the Rancor picked him up and just threw him for distance and we never saw what happens from there, you'd be like, well, is he dead? Is he not dead? Like, this seemed pretty definitive to me that they wanted you to know that he was dead, because Fett runs him through and he just sort of goes, and then he's just lying there. Like, I guess you could have had a puddle of green blood or something.
Was going to go lie in Santon was supposed to go lie in the Bacta tank, but he doesn't. He
clearly does at some point there, right? Because he ends up looking healthier by the end of the episode, but because he gets shot a lot. Now we do know that the Wookiee's skin is incredibly durable, so they can take a few shots without dying. But he gets shot a lot in this episode. But anyway, so at that point, of course, we get the final scene with the Rancor. Then we cut to Mos Eisley, where we're in there with the leadership of the Pikes and the mayor, and the leadership that had turned on Boba Fett, the people, the Aqualish and the Trandoshans, and I can't recall the name of the third race, who had all turned on Boba Fett. Of course, their Fennec shows up and basically one by one picks them off and kills every last one of them, including the mayor, which I thought that's fine. I'm fine with that. So yeah, then we end up with a nice little sort of Boba Fett and Fennec are sort of standing there, looking over their territory, and realize that they are now the leaders of not only is he the daimyo, but he's sort of become the de facto mayor of Mos Espa, and they sort of leave the two of them with this sort of happy place territory to protect. They've agreed not to run spice anymore, so he's kind of a crime lord, but not so much with the crime. All the other families are dead, so yeah, I guess it's sort of a wrapped up in a bow ending. So if we don't see Boba again, I guess it's okay. It's not a great ending. And then for our first little sort of ending, after the ending, we get, of course, the starfighter that Mando is now flying around in. We get Grogu and his little bubble where normally you'd have an astromech, and he's got the little ball from the control panel of the Razor Crest, and he's banging it on the glass, and Mando saying no, okay, fine, one last time, and he presses the super speed button, and Grogu's like woohoo, and so off they go towards their next adventure, which I'm sure will be the next season of Mandalorian. We get this weird Boba Fett ending song. Boba Fett. Boba Fett. That was really weird. My son and I were looking at each other like, was that needed? Was that necessary? And then the stinger is that we see Thundercat, the performer, as the mod doctor, and he's in the back to chamber room where Boba had been healing himself, and we look inside the tank and we see Cobb Vanth. So Vanth is clearly not dead. He's clearly healing, but seems like he's going to be modified. So given that he was shot in the upper arm shoulder area, if I had to guess, I would suggest that perhaps we'll see Cobb Vanth with a robotic arm in the future. And that's where we end. I found this, it's funny, we talked last week, I said I think every episode has been better than the last. This was not better than the last. No. Pacing I found was a little off. It was certainly better than some of the finales we've seen for the Disney Plus seasons. I think it was better than Hawkeye. I think it was better than some of them, but they were still kind of shoehorning a lot of stuff in all at once. And yeah, it was a long battle for sure. It's funny because there were different directors for different episodes. Filoni, Dave Filoni directed some. Favreau obviously did some. The two of them were the writers of the whole thing. Robert Rodriguez did the first episode and also this episode. Bryce Dallas Howard, of course, did one of the better episodes. Mm-hmm. It's so weird to say this, but I honestly felt like Rodriguez was the weakest link of this group of directors.
Well, he was doing the Desperado, right?
He was, but Desperado wasn't even that good, frankly. El Mariachi was much, much better as a fight scene.
But you know what I mean? It had that sort of like Mexican standoff kind of...
It did, and maybe that's what they were... Yeah, maybe that's what they were going for, but it didn't land as well for me. There were certainly some good moments, and all things being equal, it was reasonably satisfying. But that the way that it was paced out, and just some of the sort of leaps of logic and stuff like that, kind of left me wanting a little more from all this. Like I never really felt in the moment like anybody I cared about was gonna die. I never felt like the stakes were high. There was really no tension, which for an episode that was ostensibly mostly a fight, there was no tension. I never felt like there was an element of risk. So think about some of the great sort of fight scenes in movies over the years. I go back to one I know, Tim, you're a big fan of as well, is Serenity, right? The Firefly movie.
Yeah.
The final fight scene, the stakes are set up by the fact that we've seen two of the major characters killed, one right there in that moment. So when the bad guys are coming after them and people keep getting hit and wounded and stuff like that, you're like, damn, is this going to be like a last stand? Like, are we going to see everybody die? I never felt any of that tension in this episode. Not from the beginning through the end. I never felt like there was ever a risk to anybody at all. Not even the sort of second and third tier characters. Not Chrysanthemum, not Pelimoth, not even the Major Domo, frankly. Like, I just never felt like there was that tension, which is, it's so stupid because, again, I thought this series was fine. Like, it was good. It was not like knock your socks off good, but it was a good series. It's a solid 7 out of 10. Like, it was good. It was enjoyable. It wasn't great. It was good. But this really was not the best ending I think it could have had. Also, I kept saying to myself, and I said it to Xavier before the show started, I said, I'm just going to make a bold prediction here before we start. I still feel like the stinger for this has to be that there's a bigger bad than the Pikes, because the Pikes are a lame bad guy. The whole idea of the Syndicate, that was super lame. There has to be something more. And I guess that's what they were going for with Cad Bane, was like, oh, here's somebody bigger than the Pikes. But I say this as somebody who, like, I have right here on my desk, I have a Cad Bane action figure. I love Cad Bane. He's one of my favorite characters that come out of the animated universe. I was so thrilled to see him in live action. Again, bummed to see him die, but not because of, like, more just because I like the character. I see more from him, not because I didn't think it was an apt death. But I really felt like there needed to be something bigger than just these drug runners messed over the Mandalorian's adopted family. Like, it never really had the gravitas. I never, like, the leader of the Pikes, didn't even know his name. Like, it felt like there needed to be more. I thought for sure we were going to see something like the characters from Shadows of the Empire, the Black Sun, or we would see Kira from Solo, or something that would just hint at, well, you have peace for now, but there's still a bigger crime universe out there, or the Hutts, or something that would show more. And it just found, like, as I came to the end of it, I was like, really, the Pikes were the bad guys? Like, really?
I think that this series, when I look at it as a whole, suffers because it has a lot of connective tissue that it's expected to set. And so I don't know for certain that the bigger bad that you're looking for, if I were to speculate, I would guess that the Hutts end up being that in, like, a future season or in some plot line in The Mandalorian at some point, with Boba being involved, because they were there and then they sort of pieced out and said, yeah, we don't want to fight. Maybe because they were like, we'll just let you guys fight and then come beat up the leftovers. Yeah. And then from the connective tissue standpoint, has had, some setting of the stage for an Ahsoka series, right? And gives you a little bit of like, oh, okay, cool. So she did see Luke and she did hang out with him for a bit. So you got a jumping off point for her solo series, and surprisingly cleared a lot of the table for The Mandalorian to start. Like, those should be really crisp episodes for season 3, right? Because it's like, I thought he was going to go get Grogu sometime in season 3. I thought he was going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, oh, they actually got to resolve all that. It's ready to roll for his go cleanse his self and become a Mandalorian again. Right? Yeah.
So I guess that begs a question, which is this the end of the focus on Boba Fett? That is to say, should we in any way expect a second season, or is he now a potential supporting character for The Mandalorian, for an Ahsoka series, for wherever they choose to expand the Star Wars live action universe?
Yeah, hard to say, because, I mean, like, what does he do now? Like, does he just walk through the town bowing at people? Like, and
they give him fruit, which he gives away.
Yeah, he gets this sentence, but... yeah, I don't know. It was an okay. I mean, the Mandalorian parts were much better in this show, and I mean, Grogu coming back and putting the Rancor to sleep was kind of like, so what? I mean, they could have, I guess they had to resolve the end of they had to calm the Rancor down, right? And they had to use the Force to do it. But yeah, it was okay. I mean, but when Boba Jindarin were getting shot at, and the best, the bullets are bouncing off the best bar and all that kind of stuff. That made sense, but even the dark saber couldn't cut through the
shields,
shields, which I found surprising. I love the fact that the Rancor can just power his way through the shields and rip their arms off, right? Rip their, whatever you call those, tentacles or whatever they were, off. But it was kind of a funny way to sort of see how they destroy those two droids. But was there only two of them? Because it's funny how there's two of them, and then he dispatches one, and then the other one's not around for a little bit. Like, what?
Yeah, they basically separate them, right? Because the one ends up outside Sanctuary, and the other one ends up cornering the Freetowners, right? Yeah. And you're right. I mean, they didn't really, if they hadn't shown the last time on Boba Fett, we wouldn't have, if you hadn't sort of kept up with the fact that the two towns or two leaders who said the one, I keep calling him the dude abides, right? The dude, I abide, because he
abides, and he's one of the ones that turns on him, and then another character turns on him, and again, but we don't even know who they are, and
there's no stakes,
who they represent, and exactly, right? So, and the Pike leader is kind of wishy-washy, and
I don't know. I think that's kind of where it falls down. I mean, the best series, the best comic books, the best stories, the best movies, the best of storytelling writ large often relies on the quality of the adversary, not necessarily the quality of the hero.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And on that front, in retrospect, as we now completed this journey, kind of fell flat. Cad Bane was a lovely addition, and I think that's the part that stood out to me was, again, having seen all those episodes of Clone Wars and then into the Bad Batch, I found that for me, the resonance of the fight, the showdown between those two characters, knowing what we saw of them when Boba was a kid still and growing up and all that, the conclusion to have them show down and then fight and then Boba kill Cad had resonance for me, but I feel like it wouldn't for the most part for a lot of people who are filthy casuals.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing too. I guess you sort of have to wonder, because you're right. There is that sort of part where he's pointing the gun at Boba's head and talking and trash talking his father. Yeah. Right. I mean, I did recognize that he was from Clone Wars, and I did recognize that. I don't know if Boba was Boba a kid in Clone Wars, because I know he was. I mean, I know he was young, but I mean, like. He wasn't the rotten kid that was in the group where the young students are, and the one's got the real grumpy look on his face. Is that Boba? Yeah. In Clone Wars? Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah. He's mad that his dad's been dead. And
he hates Mace Windu. I did see an interesting headline. I must admit I didn't read it yesterday, but apparently Tamura Morrison, of course, played Boba Fett. He said he would love to have a second season of Book of Boba Fett just so that they could bring back Mace Windu so that he could get revenge.
Right.
Because again,
except for the fact that he got thrown out the window
he got thrown out the window. He lost an arm and he got thrown out the window. That does not mean he died. Until I see a head severed. I mean, Django's dead. Jango Fett is dead. That dude had his head chopped off. These wishy-washy deaths where they're like, ah! I've fallen into a chasm. Sure, you're dead.
Well, did you talk about the cutscene at the very end with the Bacta tank?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because
tank, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of called it last week when I was recapping the show because he wasn't dead. They were still doing first aid on him, Oh,
I never thought he was dead. It never occurred to me that they would kill Cobb Vanth. That seemed like a waste. Especially, as you said, this is a character, people know him from The Mandalorian, but it's a character they introduced in the Aftermath book series, and he's been part of canon for a while, so it seemed like that would be a bit of an ignominious death, especially because the whole point is that Bane was supposed to basically have shot him in haste so that he could put a lot of holes in the deputy who was also going to try and kill him, right?
Right, yeah.
I did have a fleeting hope when I saw that scene pop up and I recognized the room. I was like, please be Cad Bane in the tank. Please be Cad Bane in the tank. And I was like,
oh, really? Oh yeah.
But So what? Where do you rate and rank and enjoy this? it's so funny to think about this. Like we've, feel like we've been on this journey for 1,000 miles, but yeah, this is only like the third season of Star Wars that we've seen in Disney Plus, and the third season of live action Star Wars we've ever seen. I don't think it's as strong as The Mandalorian, but then it really is, it felt like an adjunct to The Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very sort of dovetailed with that too.
Yeah, I do think you're right that like 7 out of 10 is probably about where the series is as a whole for this season, which isn't too bad. I mean, I think folks are maybe somewhat bummed because of just the highs from the Mandalorian's 2 seasons, but we'll see what they do with the connective tissue thing that I was talking about. Does it set the stage for some of these other series to really take off?
Yeah, and there are scenes. I would watch certain episodes of this series again. I mean, I don't know if I'd watch like the first Boba Fett with the sand creature people or whatever.
Yeah, the Tuskens.
Tuskens, and I kind of disappointed that the Tusken kid doesn't sort of have a relationship with Boba going forward, right? Like 10 years in the future or something.
Yeah.
And then the Pikes telling today that they got rid of the Tusken Raiders, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would have liked to have seen, like, when he said we're going to need more. I really thought that would pay back with, other Tusken tribes or some other connection to the Tuskens would have been, I think, more poignant. Where he needs to raise an army, but now he knows the Tusken ways. He goes out and he finds more Tusken tribes, and they are the ones who basically avenge the previous. I think that there would have been some poignance to that, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So get at me, Filoni. I'm ready to come work on the writing team for next season stuff.
All right, cool. Right, so we move on to our watch list then.
Yep.
Whatever we have of it.
Yep.
What do you got?
Mine is not a watch list item, but it's something that I noticed on Amazon. It's got a absurdly long official title, so I'm just going to read it all. Star Trek Shipyards, Star Trek Starships, 2294 to the Future, 2nd edition, the Encyclopedia of Starfleet Ships.
Okay.
As it says on the tin there, this is from apparently August of 2021, and it's a nice visual encyclopedia of a bunch of ships, including up through the Discovery. So it's as new as of, I think it was like season 3 or something. I saw somebody say in the comments. So interesting to see this sort of stuff. I have somewhere the Star Trek Encyclopedia from many, many, many moons ago when I think DS9 might have barely started. I think. I can't remember. It was like TNG on the primary cover with both the original Enterprise and the movie Enterprise.
Yeah, somewhere I have a book of, I think maybe it's the 25th anniversary, was a book of all the episode synopsises. Didn't cover all of the series as well, but I'm pretty sure that like a little bit of Voyager and Deep Space Nine were in there, but of course I have no idea where it is. It's in storage somewhere, but
yeah.
And there's a lot of these type of books around, right? Like it looks like even the bottom of this page that I'm looking at, it's got all the other Klingon fleet and the Borg fleet, and I'm sure you can probably get the Haynes manual of the Starship Enterprise as well. Cool. What do you got, John?
Yeah, I got a couple things. So something I want to watch, something I have watched, and something that I think are all interested in. So the Cuphead show is coming to Netflix very soon. It's coming on February 18th. For those of you who are not familiar with Cuphead was this monstrously popular indie game that came out 4 years ago for a lot of the different platforms. It was done in a style of like 1930s cartoon animation. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful, the way that they had built this game. My youngest son was very, very, very interested in this game, and it's another one of those ones, like so many have come before, the Angry Birds and all these sort of things that are sort of trending, and they're like, oh yeah, this is such a hot property. We should make a cartoon out of this. 4 years later, That being said, I have seen the trailer for the Cuphead show, which you can see on Netflix. The trailer's up now, and it looks fantastic. It looks very much like in the style and in the spirit of the game. It very much feels like, yes, a sort of a throwback. It's a little dark. It's pretty funny, and I'm totally going to check this out. It's such a weird and unique game, and I love what they did with it, and I really want to see what they do with it as a cartoon series. So that's one I'm definitely looking forward to next week. One that I did watch is so the French Dispatch has come to Disney Plus here in Canada. I couldn't speak to whether it's arrived in the States. Maybe Jaime can tell me whether or not he's seen it, but The French Dispatch is the latest movie by Wes Anderson, the celebrated director of films like Rushmore, Moonrise Kingdom, The Grand Budapest Hotel, etc., the Royal Tenenbaums, of course. I had a chance to watch it last week. It is, like so many of his movies, extremely unique, very much his own style, an incredible cast. Some really, really interesting visuals. Again, he's such an amazing visual artist. The way that he directs, the way that he frames things, the sets, the attention to detail.
Wait, do you mean he makes film?
Yeah, he's such a singular vision of what he's looking for, and I am a big fan. I've been a big fan for years. I was kind of bummed last year when this came out in the fall. I try and make a point of seeing Wes Anderson films in the theater, even though they don't tend to get obviously the most spectacular. It's not like they're putting them on IMAX screens or anything, because they are essentially small movies.
Yeah, they're artistic. Yeah.
But I have seen a number of his films in the theater, and because he has such a unique visual style, it's a really incredible thing to see on a large screen, just because he's very much invested in symmetry and just some very signature art styles in the way that he makes films. This one, unfortunately I had to wait and see it on television, but it still had a lot of impact. It was still a really, really interesting experience. It's I will say it's certainly not his best film, I don't think, but it definitely is unmistakably Wes Anderson. If you enjoy that, I would say go to it, because it's quite well done, and some really, really interesting performances. Benicio del Toro has a very memorable role in this, and it is packed with stars. Of course, Bill Murray and some of the regulars that you see there, Edward Norton, and some of the some of the actors you've seen recurring in his films previously, but also Timothée Chalamet is in this. There's certainly Léa Seydoux, the French actress who most recently was the main female character in the last couple of Bond movies. Lots of new faces mixed in with some familiar faces, but I really dug it. I thought it was really cool. I like so many of his movies, I think it'll benefit from a second, third, fourth, and fifth watching, because there's just so much detail. Like in the first one, you're kind of trying to keep up with the plot and the dialogue and everything else, and you're trying to soak in the visuals. You almost want to watch it with the sound off the second time and just look at it, because it's really neat. But it's available if you have your Disney Plus. It just popped up this week, I saw on Disney Plus, so I would recommend checking that one out.
Yeah, for the USA, for those wondering, found an article that since the French Dispatch has an R rating, it won't be unavailable on Disney Plus in the USA. Also complicating things is it's a 20th Century Studios film, so it's going on HBO Max first because of a pre-existing contract, and then it'll eventually head to Hulu. So the soonest you can see it is February 25th on HBO Max here in the US.
And it is available now. You can buy it on iTunes as well.
Oh, okay, yeah. The soon as you can see it as part of some streaming service as opposed to a direct purchase, apparently.
I will say that it's no question why there are some pretty graphic nude scenes, and it is yes. I should definitely clarify. While it is by no means tawdry, like it's none of the nudity is really it's not like for titillation or anything like that, but there is certainly some nudity in the film and stuff like that. So I can see why that would be that. And certainly for the Disney Plus audience, yes, there's no shortage of tobacco use, alcohol use, all the things that Disney Plus does not want necessarily out there. Again, I love the fact that they've combined the best of Hulu with the best of Disney sometimes on Disney Plus here, although we talked about the not enjoying the fact that we sometimes get delayed on the Hulu stuff. But I like that I can go onto my Disney Plus here in Canada and it's offering me both simultaneously. It's offering me very, very contradictory stuff. It's like, would you like to see the newest Pixar movie, or would you like to see Leia Seydoux without her clothes on? Like, yes to both. And the last thing I got in here is we were talking about Spider-Man No Way Home and when we will see it. Still no news. I check in weekly to sort of see if there's any ETA for it arriving on a streaming service. Again, I suspect where we'll see it eventually is Netflix, because that seems to be where Sony properties end up. But Amazon here in Canada has got an official date release for it for the 4K Blu-ray, DVD, yada, 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 which is March the 15th. So we're about a month away from a physical release of this. I have also checked in on iTunes here in Canada, and while you can pre-order it, I have not seen a release date associated with that yet. So far, nothing as far as when you'll be able to get your hands on that one as far as a digital release. And yeah, so Jaime, as it stands, you're still on the wait list for this one. It's your first window is going to open on March the 15th.
Cool. I'll just have to stay unspoiled for like another month. That's not too bad.
I can't believe you haven't been spoiled. I genuinely can't believe it. Like
you haven't seen this movie yet?
No, I haven't seen this movie. I wasn't able to get to it during the holidays. And so it's been scary. I feel like I've been getting spoiler edges, but I don't think the main meat, I don't think is
right.
Like I don't really know anything about the plot, so that's good.
All right. Well, we won't wreck it for you.
But there's this amazing scene.
But it was pretty shocking when the Dalek showed up in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, my two picks here, they're basically what I've been watching is the watch list after all. I tuned into the after party just, because I was looking for something to watch just while I was doing some light work around the house, and not like Jaime, doing the laundry while I watch kid shows. But the after party turned out to be rather entertaining. It's kind of an interesting take. It's basically a high school reunion, and not James Franco, but his brother Dave Franco plays like a Justin Bieber type character who's now he's become the rich, famous, intern dude. His name is Eugene in high school, but he goes by his middle name, which is Xavier, as a famous sort of one, like Cher, kind of like, Brittany, kind of like everybody knows him by his name kind of thing. And so he has this after party after the high school reunion at his house, and he somebody ends up dead. And of course, then, Tiffany Haddish shows up as the bumbling detective kind of deal. It's a bit like sort of like Clouseau kind of story here. Of course, there's I think there's 8 suspects, and so they go through. Now each episode is covering the story as they're telling the story to the detective. They kind of, each episode has sort of a theme to it, and it's hilarious because there's who's the two girls from the two Broad girls? From
Broad City.
Broad City, yeah, the one with the curly hair. She plays like the alcoholic, drunk, party girl, like who's just like, drowning her sorrows kind of thing.
Yeah, and when Alana Glazer.
Yeah, when it's her turn to tell the story, the whole theme of the thing becomes like a slasher, high school slasher film, and with the dark corridors and the deep bass noises and these strange men chasing her and kind of thing. And so from her perspective, she's pretending to be drunk, but she's not really, right? She's trying to get close to certain characters. And then there's another guy who used to be in a ska band with the Xavier character, And so his whole episode is like a music. Like he even does like a whole rap number in the middle, and it's really, really well told story. Like it's the same, like each one of them tells the story from their perspective, right, or what happened in the evening, kind of thing. And it's actually very, very entertaining. But the thing about it is, it's not like it's not graphically violent. There's not like one of the measures that Jonathan and I have for movies is breaking glass, because we have a family member who doesn't like the sound of breaking glass. There's no breaking glass in this movie. I mean, or very little of it. Like maybe like a candy dish might hit the floor, but surprisingly, it's more like a murder mystery kind of, an evening with like trying to figure out how, who the killer is, and somebody in this room was the person who did it, kind of thing, right? So it's very, very entertaining, and not super funny, but like not over the top funny, but hilarious, like in that sort of sense, right? One of my favorite lines in the movie is when she has a partner, a cop, and she's like, she's starting to say, you always get like this, and he goes, "Don't tell me I'm being dramatic," which is hilarious. Like that kind of sarcastic sort of presentation of stuff. But yeah, like when they got to the story with the girl, and it's sort of the slasher movie kind of perspective, it was like really funny. The other TV show I'm watching, which again I just sort of was flipping by looking for something to do, was Suspicion, and both of these are only 3 episodes in. Like they come out every Friday on the Apple TV. And Suspicion is a British story with a couple of American actors in it, but it's about this crime that gets committed at the beginning, and you can see it in the trailer. And these 4 British people who are like totally they're not suspicious in any way, and yet because all 4 of them had a reason to go for one day only to New York City where the crime took place, and then return the next day. One's getting married, like she's in the police station with her wedding dress on, doesn't even get to the altar. I mean, one is the surprising one is Raj from Big Bang Theory with a full beard and a British accent and unrecognizable. I kept looking at him going, how do I know that guy from? Like, what movie is he from? And, I thought maybe he's like the guy from Yesterday or something like that, but it's just sort of, but like really well portrayed, because he almost unrecognizable. And I don't know if you watched S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but the young lady that plays the brilliant of the 2 twins of them. Yeah, she's just a college professor, who happened to be in town to do a conference, and she's one of the suspects. And so, like, these 4 people who are currently accused of being the only suspects they have, that the MI5 or MI6 agent and the American FBI guy have to question, they totally don't seem like the kind of people that would have committed this thing, right? So it's kind of an interesting story. Again, no breaking glass, no gunfire, it's just a whodunit sort of thing. So 2 whodunits, really entertaining, After Party and Suspicion. Definitely check them out.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess that's it for another week. So I guess, Jonathan, people can get in touch with you where they find you.
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
All right. And Jaime, where people can find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right, and as usual, my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 That concludes another episode of Spotcast, streamed to you via Subspace Signal. I'm friend of the show, Greg Heo, joining you from Sector 001. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with your Star Trek nerd hosts on the website or follow them on Twitter. They're @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send them a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending it to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount of Gold Press Latinum at patreon.com/spotcast. You can find details on how to help them out on the website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future. Wishing you peace and long life.
It's now 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Kind of sneaks up on you on these the 9 o'clock Discovery starts, eh?
Yeah. Well, I think what I was looking at. Oh, I was looking at my iPad. My iPad has on the home screen has like an analog clock. I guess what do you call it? Those dashboard widgets or whatever. What do we call these things? These panels. But I've been watching the sort of widget.
Probably.
I've got like an analog clock widget on the corner here, and I've been watching it sort of creep up to. It's not actually 1 o'clock yet, but it's like we're like a minute away. But you can. It's funny how my brain works. Like when you look at digital time, you're like, oh, there's time left. But when I look at an analog clock, my brain really sort of clues into how late it really is.
Yeah.
And Jonathan and I have to turn into pumpkins, so let's call it a night. What do you say?
All right.
Yeah. What Star Wars Disney thing are we going to be reviewing next week?
This is.
I don't think there's anything.
We talked about it the last couple of weeks. I thought for sure that they would announce a thing, but it really seems like they're going into a little hiatus till Moon Knight comes out. I'm genuinely surprised. This is the first time since last summer that they've taken longer than like a week or two in between shows.
But it's not like there's nothing on Disney Plus that we could watch.
It's true. It's just that from the start of WandaVision, which was a year ago.
Oh, right. Yeah.
From like WandaVision to Falcon and the Winter Soldier to, the Mandalorian and Loki and all these things that they've done over the past year. This is the first time that there will be an extended Disney Plus hiatus. It's odd.
Yeah.
But it will make for faster episodes of Spotcast for a few weeks.
That's true. But you know what else is on right now on Disney Plus is The Last Duel. That's the Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that dropped the same time that the French Dispatch came this week. Was that one? Yeah. And there was something else on there that I wanted to watch. I can't remember what the other one was, but it seems like they just did a big sort of movie drop this week, which is nice.
Where's the licorice pizza thing showing up? Where's that?
I haven't seen it on a streaming service yet.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's available for viewing on. Let me just check. I've got iTunes Store.
What's the next movie we're going to go see in the theater?
I was going to ask you about that. So the next movie that's coming out is Uncharted. Is coming out in 2 weeks.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I thought...
And the Batman tickets went on sale, too.
Yes,
but we're not going to go opening night, though, right? We're not going opening night.
I don't think so. I think we'll continue probably doing what we've done for the past few, which is if you give it a week or two... we can find a showing that's probably highly unattended, and I think that's.
I think Wednesday is a good day. Oh, actually, do you have family day off?
I do.
You do.
I do.
Everybody has family day off.
That's the problem. Yeah.